In Europe, not so much. Actually, maybe in Europe as well. But another big controversy is happening with the St. Louis Chess Club and, of course, Hans Niemann. February 2nd, big statement came from the St. Louis Chess Club, basically saying that while the St. Louis Chess Club remains committed to providing a world-class environment for all levels of chess players to play and enjoy chess, after recent consideration, the St. Louis Chess Club has made the difficult decision not to extend an invitation to GM Hans Niemann to participate in any invitational tournaments organized by the club in 2024. So we're going through the timeline right now. The decision was based on GM Hans Niemann's demonstrated inappropriate behavior, including damaging private property, rude comments, and an uncooperative attitude, resulting in a failure to fulfill contractual obligations. The decision was not made lightly, and we hope this serves as an opportunity for growth and personal reflection, and they will reevaluate and see whether they will invite him in 2025. So 1-year ban from the St. Louis Chess Club invitational events for Hans. That's a pretty big statement, and we will soon learn a lot more details about it. First of all, this kind of came as a shock to me. I did not expect it. I had ideas of Hans' unruly behavior. Unruly behavior, let's call it that way. Basically, we will get into that in just a second. But yes, it was kind of well known in closed circles. I would assume you knew about the situation at the hotel when he trashed more or less his room and then had to pay a fine for it. Your take on the statement?
Okay, so first of all, I think I heard a rumor, someone heard something from somebody. I didn't put much weight into it. And so I didn't really know if there was any truth to it or not. Yeah, about the hotel room. And I mean, I really heard from a very offhand source who heard it from a player, I think, from the tournament. And I wasn't sure that there was anything to it, if it was real or not. You can always hear some things. And then I forgot about the thing completely.
Yeah.
Basically, it was clear that for a while, there were tournaments that Hans would have been a natural fit for that he wasn't being invited to. But also, since the chess club can invite whoever they want and they have no obligation to invite one player or another, you wouldn't expect that it would ever come into some sort of dispute because, the tournament that I would think actually set things off is the American Cup, because most likely,
You
I
mean
mean,
the
Hans can play.
upcoming American Cup?
Yeah, the one which happened last year and which will happen again this year in March. Because the United States Championship, Hans is eligible to play by. People always have a problem with how I pronounce that word, but anyway, he's allowed to play in the American Cup because he qualifies by rating, and the American Cup is only hosted by St. Louis. They don't decide who plays. That's purely a matter of qualification. So it's their event to host,
I
but
think they
it's
have
part of
one
U.S.
wild card,
chess.
right?
Yeah, they have one wild. I don't actually know who decides who that wild card is. It doesn't really matter. But basically, the St. Louis Chess Club is just the place where they hold it, and they organize. They put the prize fund up. I think, which it's an excellent prize fund. It's like 60 grand first prize, kind of unheard of in national championships. So Hans of course can play that, and he did play that in the last 2 years. And then all the invitationals like the Spring Classic GM, Winter Classic GM, all these things which the club hosts. I don't know if Hans cares too much about it, but he did say publicly that he had asked to play and asked to be invited, and he would have been a very natural fit for that tournament because he's 2675 currently. He would be a bit higher than the average rating in the Spring Classic, for example, or any of these classic tournaments that they hold quarterly. And the American Cup, if they simply go down the rating list, then I think he would be near the bottom, but he would be one of the players that would be invited. Like let's say I'm highest rated, then Hikaru, then Wesley, then Lanier, then Levon. That's 8 players, so I think that's 5, and then there's um, Hans is among a
For
group of
for
some.
this year, he was number 8 by rating, but I would assume some of them declined to participate, and
Oh,
basically they invited
Hikaru,
all
I
the
think,
way.
right?
I think Hikaru declined. Yes, at least Hikaru.
Yeah,
I'm not sure about anybody else, but I know that they
sure,
invited
maybe.
up to Grigory Oparin, which is number 10 in the US.
Yeah, yeah. So basically, Hans uh, was kind of, you could say he was left out of this, which was just going according to ratings. And then the question is why? And of course, I had no clear answer to that, and nobody really thought about it, I guess. I mean, the players who were playing might have given some thoughts to it, but the outside world, of course, who would think about it? But for Hans, it is definitely a missed tournament. It's a tournament with a serious prize fund, very nice format. I don't know what the first prize is. Maybe it's like 60 or something, but pretty serious money in the tournament. And of course, playing against the best players in the United States, also a nice thing and definitely something that he wants to play. So I assume, and I don't know this, but I assume that that's what set it off. That basically he's like, I want to play this tournament. I'm in the rating list. I'm top 8 in the United States. Is someone else getting it?
Hmm.
And well, we don't have to assume too much because he Hans actually did give his story, his retelling of the events,
Yeah.
and he said that there was like communication back and forth. Mostly, he was trying to get in touch, and he wasn't getting responses. This is, of course, his account, so we don't really know exactly what the club would counter with in terms of if this is 100% accurate or not. But basically, he was saying that he was trying to get in contact and trying to get invited and asking for invites, and the club was not very responsive. And eventually, the reason that the club gave is um, that they're not inviting him because he damaged um, some private property, and he was kind of unhelpful in terms of interviews and stuff. I don't remember all the details, but basically that was it. And then Hans said, "Okay, I damaged this stuff in the hotel, but it was only a few minor things, and I paid for it." And that's basically where the story stands. So I don't have inside info. I'm just saying exactly what Hans and the club publicly said. Basically, Hans is saying, "I paid for the damage and so on, um, and therefore the slate should be wiped clean, right?"
Yeah. Yeah.
And the club has decided that this slate is not wiped clean, and for the next year, I guess that's what
Hmm.
they said, right?
Hmm.
That
2024 this year.
yeah, he can still play the U.S. Championship.
Yes.
That's, I think, a given. But
And he played it last year as well. And I think when he stopped getting invitations was January 2023 by his account. That's when he said that things have
sure,
more or less slowed down in terms of invitations for him. So he didn't play the classics, the St. Louis Chess Classics.
yeah. So yeah, I don't know the timeline exactly. Like, was it this U.S. Championship? I guess it was this U.S. Champ,
He
like the
played
last one.
2023, yes.
No,
Yeah.
I mean, but was like the hotel room this U.S. Championship? It
It
was this
was
one,
it
yes.
was this one after at least the discussion is that I think after the game against Robson when he caught his own queen.
Okay, the timeline doesn't like 100% add up for me, but I don't really know the full story from all the parties involved. And to be honest, I don't care very much. I mean, it's
Right.
not really, it has nothing to do with me.
Right.
It's a private dispute between a player and an organizer, and the reason it got made public is because Hans um, told the St. Louis Chess Club, I'll make it public if you don't get on a call, and this is what he said again. If you
Yes.
don't get on a call and we figure some solution to this, and then rather than getting on a call, they just said, okay, we'll make our own public statement first. So they got ahead of it, which is probably the the correct PR move. I mean, I don't know. I assume that's
Yeah, this
the
is it's a whole PR kind of back and forth between Hans and I guess the club. But one thing I will say, and you can take this with a grain of salt because I have a great relationship with the club. I have not heard too many players speak badly about the club. Obviously, I have a working relation with the club, so you don't have to trust me or take my word for any of this. But generally threatening a private organizer with releasing sensible information and private conversations and things of that nature is not going to play in your favor. I feel that's just a losing move by itself for Hans if his stated goal, and he said it many times that his stated goal is to just play more tournaments and kind of escape the loop of open tournaments where it's so difficult to gain rating and whatnot. He wants to play invitational events, strong invitational events, and a lot of them are organized by the St. Louis Chess Club. So if that's your stated goal, then I don't think threatening the club, being rude to their management, and I think he did say quite some disparaging stuff about the management at the club as well, which is, you just shouldn't do that. You're a young, up and coming, growing player. Just be nice, and you will get your invitations. Everybody wants to see Hans play. There's, he brings a lot of attention, a lot of eyeballs to a tournament, but you're not gonna get your way by threatening private organizers. That's just silly in my opinion.
Well, yeah, okay. Like again, I'm not a PR expert. I haven't done any studying in terms of public relations, but it's not a very logical move, I think, because like let's say for the next year that he sort of in the past there was a conflict and obviously they're at odds with each other now. But for the next year, the main thing that he misses is the American Cup because the like classic events, they're they're good events, but they're not like gonna really change his career or
Sure.
I don't think that he's gonna miss those events so much. So it's mainly the American Cup. And the American Cup already the invitations are out. Like this move is not going to get him in the American Cup because it can't. Like the invitations are out and everyone the field is probably set already. I don't know for sure, but I assume so.
Hmm.
Like I already accepted my invitation, for example.
Yeah, the field is set.
So
The field is set for
so
the American
he's
Cup.
not gonna. There is no way that this move would gain him something, but it does potentially burn bridges. And I really doubt that he was at a point with the club where the relations were not possible to mend with in terms of, um, uh, just being
Yes.
friendly and
Yes.
cordial and trying to leave the past behind a bit. And yeah, it's I can give you an example. Like at some point, Ali Reza and the Tata Steel tournament organization had a big falling out
Very
because of
good
a
point.
pretty silly thing, but okay, it resulted in falling out. It was Ali Reza was very upset about the conditions during one game, and I don't know if it was the game against me actually, but it was basically he was
The
like
last game. This was the
maybe it was the
last
last
game.
game, yeah.
Yeah. They
I
had
forget
to
who he was.
move his table because of
Yeah,
the tie breaks
they
that were
wanted to
starting.
move his board because of an Armageddon or a tie-break game that was going to happen, I think, between Anish and
Jordan.
Jordan.
Hmm.
And okay, he's like, I'm not going to move during the middle of the game. Very fair point. But he got heated and basically he said, I'm never coming back. They said, you're never coming back. And look what happened a few years later. He's back. I mean, the main thing I think with all players is that like the world doesn't really doesn't care about us. I mean, we're purely performance-based athletes, if you want to call us athletes. But we only operate not on favor, but in terms of performance. So uh, if let's say you have some rough relations with an organizer, like time will smooth it over, and the rest you basically do by getting a high enough rating that the organizer wants to have you. And they're like, okay, yeah, we had some difficulties in the past, but whatever. You're 2770, you're invited. That's basically how it works. And I've never had like terrible relations with organizers or bad relations, but I understand if my rating goes down, they don't invite me. If my rating goes up, they invite me. That's how it works. And bad relationships or strained relationships will not stop that. That's the essential equation. That's it. It's organizers want high ratings. That's why Magnus plays. Okay. Of course, it's also the eyeballs. Like Hans, he has some X factor a little bit. He has notoriety. He has some fame, which means that he gets invitations, which, like Tata Steel, for example, he gets some invitations that maybe another 2680 rated player will not get.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
although the narrative is very much that everyone's against him, it's actually quite the opposite, because the organizers actually do want him there to raise the eyeballs a little bit, to raise the viewership. And as long as he's just not burning bridges, I mean, and if he improves his rating, he will get all the invitations that he could ever want. I mean, if he's 2750, nobody will deny him an invitation.
Correct.
But if you're not 2750, it's like, okay, there's Gukesh, there's Prague, there's Keimer, there's I mean there's a million players. It's a very competitive field. So um you can't expect, like, there's organizers that, let's say, in the past I've gotten a certain appearance fee to show up. And then a few years later, my rating drops. I don't even like tell them, oh, but you gave me this in the past. It's like, okay, now you give me less. I understand. That's just the way it works.
Hmm.
My the demand for me is a bit lower. My rating is lower. If at some point I'm 2600, the demand will be zero,
Hmm.
and there will be nowhere that wants me to, no organizer that wants me to play. And I'm not going to go and say, well, I'm deserving of all these invites because I'm me. It's, hey, you have your rating, you have your results, or you don't have anything. And um, but of course, you don't burn bridges. It's just very silly, and that's how the chess world works for people who are wondering. It's really rating based. That's essentially it.
Yeah, no, rating, and you as Hans at like 2680, you are bringing something else to the table. You're bringing the attention, you're bringing, as you mentioned, the X factor. But at the end of the day, it's all about the relationships that you have with these organizers. It's important to not burn bridges and to not do stupid shit. And I feel like upping the stakes and coming up with these demands publicly, it's not a good idea.
Yeah,
Deal
I
with
agree.
it,
But
deal with it privately. Speak with the club. I understand there's been some, you know, falling off. And look, trashing a hotel room, it might not sound like much, but this is the hotel which the club hosts their opening and closing ceremonies. Maybe not opening actually for the US Championship, closing always. All the players are lodged there. This is a very nice hotel. They have a very long lasting relationship with the management. Even their offices are in this hotel. Like the St. Louis Chess Club management offices are in this hotel. So you sever those relationships by trashing, pretty much completely trashing the room. That's not going to be a great look for yourself, but also for the club. And the club probably didn't like that. I understand that there's been an apology element to it afterwards, but I mean, it, it's still kind of problematic.
okay, look, I think even at this point, of course I can't know for sure, but I think even at this point, like, there is no reason for Hans to despair. I mean, if he gets his rating up, basically you can't, organizers can't really ignore it.
Yeah,
And the club, from my experience, has always been very reasonable. Like, they're just a very professional organization. They go by the book mostly. And so I don't see why they wouldn't invite him in the future. But yeah, there's no reason to try to like fight someone who, like, it's like we're chess players and the organizers are giving us the the means to support ourselves, right?
yeah,
Without organizers, without sponsors, basically, there would be no professional chess.
of course.
So you're kind of fighting against yourself in a way, because this is how we make our career. It's like, let's say you play a world championship match. The prize fund could be 2 million, or it could be $5,000. Like, there was a time when the world championship match was, okay, we're talking a long time ago, but was contested for like, maybe a month's rent or something. It wasn't like it was always the case that people could make money from chess. So it's it's just a bit, it's kind of not very helpful, to put it mildly. It's actually counterproductive, I'd say, to fight against the people who are making chess possible as a career. As like, I'm a chess professional. Hans is also a chess professional, as far as I can tell right now. I don't think he's doing anything else besides working on chess. And um, and in general, like one thing that I quite like about Hans is that he does love chess. He does take it seriously. I really believe that he like is passionate about his chess. Um, okay, yeah, you shouldn't. I mean, just as like, let's say like if I was meeting with Hans as his advisor, I would say, okay, just try to mend relations and work on your chess, get your rating up, and all the invitations that you could ever want will be yours.
Yeah, no, and again, it's just about, I would assume he's also concerned about not falling into this open tournament loop, which he experienced last year. He didn't make a lot of improvements in terms of rating because of that, or at least that's maybe his perception of it. And it's not easy to gain, 30 rating points to jump from like 2680 to 2710, 20 in open tournaments is extremely difficult. It's much easier to do it in closed events